Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for your presence in this special session. Quite an inspiring program. So, we do have two special speakers, two inspiring personalities, and when preparing this session, it's like to leave little references so that the world of tomorrow would be sustainable and desirable, which is the topic of our conversation this morning. With me, I have Véronique FAYET, president of the Caritas Catholic charity. To just one word to see the work you do. 3,500 local teams. The association provides supports to more than 650 emergency projects in the world, and you were mobilized during the pandemics. We'll discuss that. And then Bertrand, PICCARD, good morning. Good morning. But you are nevertheless the author of this amazing performance, the first trip around the world in a sun-powered plane, aboard a sun-powered plane. Then together with your Solar Impulse Foundation, you initiated in the Rencontre 2 years ago this mad project that is to create 1,000 concrete sustainable solutions for the environment and to make sure that the world of tomorrow will take shape and not just with words. So first question to both of you to kick off the discussion. So what did the pandemic change in your domains and in your respective commitments? In the media and elsewhere, we heard the world of tomorrow, the world after, more solidarity, nature is back. Great. Véronique, beyond the caregivers, the solidarity expressed to those caregivers who were very popular, did you notice an increase in solidarity and in a lasting manner? Of course, yes, solidarity was quite strong during the crisis, and fortunately, because despair, fear, poverty were all huge as well, and we've seen a lot of people who could make do in life, because they had some, social support plus a bit of informal jobs, and sometimes, food lines, and they were able to deal with the situation. But when the parallel economy collapses, what is left is the minimum, the RSA, or other revenues, or nothing for the young people who had little jobs, who could go from one job to another. So we've seen people who were in a dire situation. We saw them fall into poverty, and then there was another fear. We were all amazed by this virus, and in addition, the information were very, fear-fueling. So for people who it was multiplied to say, a mother, a single mother, if I'm here, what's going to happen? What will happen to my children? I'm going to stay home. I won't go out, and elderly people who were in total panic, total solitude. So this fear, the isolation was stronger, much stronger for the most fragile people. And of course, because of that, solidarity was quite creative in a way. For example, we had to tell our volunteers, some people like me, you more than instructions are clear, so don't go out, because they were very unpleased, because they're very young, and but anyway, they invented other ways of working. And we saw, thanks to the new technologies, we could see a lot of support to the with WhatsApp, Facebook groups, and phone, telephone chains, and even people who were not necessarily adept or were not used to such systems were able to provide support. And people said, this kept us alive, because every day we had a volunteer who would call us, who would send us a little message on WhatsApp, and so on and so forth. So, some of our volunteers sometimes spent 4 or 5 hours a day providing support on the phone, and that was quite amazing, because otherwise, a lot of people would have really collapsed. And there we faced the problem. We could see what you call the digital gap. People who were not equipped for kids to go to school, or people who had 3-4 euro mobile phone contract. And so we worked on that. So we, at a time of crisis, fortunately, there is solidarity. We saw the young people arrive, and people who could who provide donors were very generous, and there are some in the room, and I want to thank them. So there was generosity, there was solidarity, thank God. But what the most difficult? Well, I think the most difficult part maybe is ahead of us. Bertrand Piccard, if you don't mind, I will first unveil the background of the rencontre. We meet to prepare this. You were more provocative in the words when we prepared the discussion together. You said to me, the pandemic showed us as well, because we talk about the French model here, economic and social model, that the social safety net, in French social safety net, in a crisis, you realize that there are more holes than threads, and we can fall through it easily. I found that yes, this is a very clear image. Protection, safety net, well, fair enough. But as of the first or second day of the lockdown, I wrote to the Prime Minister to tell him, careful, careful. The poorest will be the poorest population will be the most impacted one. So we need support straight away, so that they will not die of starvation. There can be stay home, because there was families, stopped spending money. There were less income, but more expenditure, because kids were at home. The school canteen was finished. They had to buy school equipment. So, so we partially we were supported partially when the government decided to provide 2 forms of support for the most fragile families. One in May, which was quite late, and we had to really fight hard, and one in November. And just like for the employees, we would have loved to have a monthly support throughout the crisis. It was half a victory, but it did reveal that the minimum support pensions or minimum social support alone do not make it possible to we need with little jobs, we need things to make it possible to get out, to help, to go through the situation. So the government should have found another solution for tomorrow, but it's not the case today. But nevertheless, we're not at the end of the story yet. Thank you, Véronique. Bertrand Piccard. All the aircrafts grounded. Your 1,200 projects, stopped. When we saw this industry, this economy, the business that almost crashed. Now they came to see you and to say, okay, what your projects, which are environmental and green, which are environment compatible, which are in startups, which are sort of turnkey ready, we want them now. And did you get a lot of demand with the awareness because of the to come out of the yes, and for a simple reason, in fact, that there are a lot of inequalities in our world. And if the economy cannot meet everybody's needs, it's simply because we live in a world of wastage and inefficiency. And this is what the problem is. A large part of the energy that we produce is lost. A lot of the food we produce is wasted. Even the waste is wasted, because waste are resources to be used in circular economy. So, in fact, when we talk about poverty and we talk about inequalities and when we talk about pollution and climate change, we are we're talking about the same cause of inefficiency and wastage. In what we try to do with Impulse, we try to find solutions which are very concrete and to become efficient, to avoid wastage, to protect the environment, but while being economically profitable and providing, making sure for the economy to function. That is one of the ways to solve the problems of inequality, unemployment, of social difficulties. And when you live in a thermal in a house with a fuel heating, but the system is not airtight, well, you have a high invoices at the end of the month. If we can put it heat pump, you reduce by 3 the heating needs, and therefore you multiply by, you increase your revenues. So out of the 1,000 projects, because you go around the world with your teams to identify them, you establish links with the investors, you open your network to make sure it is concrete. Maybe one example of one of the projects that on which you're really you're very enthusiastic, that we're going to discover in the coming months or years. Well, there are industrial projects for heat recovery from factories, but there is one of the solutions called Too Good To Go, which is solar. It's a platform actually, which makes it possible to call people who need food at a time when we reach the expiry date and food is dumped. Tons of food is dumped at the end of the day, and Too Good To Go makes it possible to do baskets for people who need it and who can come and get it for a very limited sum. So it's less expensive than if they were to buy it, but it's more profitable than if it was wasted. And this is what you said, Bertrand Piccard. And Véronique, you were saying, sir, that, well, you said that the wastage of the previous world is an element of inequality. Absolutely, absolutely. There is enough food for everybody. There is enough energy for everybody. There is enough of everything for everybody. But we live in a world which, in fact, has become the least expensive possible, and we think, but by selling things, with little at the lowest possible price, it will help the people who have no money. So it's wrong, because the profit margin of companies are shrinking, so they have to sell more and more as an industry, and they sell stuff which is less and less healthy in terms of food and of poorest quality in terms of durability. So if we have little means today, and if we have to buy cheap things that don't last long, it costs more money, it creates more waste, and it pollutes more. So this is what we have to reverse. What I try to promote with Solar Impulse is to uncouple the GDP from the production and consumption quantities, to couple the GDP to the quality of the efficiency. And if you can sell efficiency, then you sell a service, and it can only be favorable to the environment. You're no longer inundating the market with low-quality products. You're creating jobs to help people being more efficient, to waste less money, and to have better quality. And it is this change of mindset that is essential, and this is where technology can help. I see your next question, technology, that's it. We bring questions of innovation that will bring science to do even more damage to mankind. No. I do believe that we do have technology that makes it possible to solve a large number of today's problems. And if we need to change behaviors, let's change behaviors when needed. But let's start by stopping this insane wastage based on technologies which are 100 years old. What we use as a heating, insulation, engines, and so on and so forth, it's 100 years old. So, we show our latest generation of mobile phone, but thinking we're modern, but we're in fact totally archaic, and we have to change that. And if we can modernize all our infrastructures, all our buildings, all our heating systems, industries, and so on and so forth, And financially, it is profitable because energy and resource saving will finance this. Well, and then you solve a large part of the unemployment for several years.
Well, when you say that, we would vote for you immediately. It seems clear, it seems limpid. Is it a message? There are a lot of company directors here who also explain how they're trying to change to be more virtuous and create employment. When you meet them, what you're saying here, does this resonate with start-uppers, young generations, or also the giants that create markets alone? When you explain this, your logic. Yes, because I'm not speaking simply of a utopia for environmental protections and sustainability through degrowth and sacrifice, because that frightens everybody. We work with many industries. We have industrial partners who bring us experts, solutions. We also bring our solutions. Many of them were here yesterday. When you see Air Liquide, when you see Engie, when you see the companies of that quality, Holcim, Air France, etc., they are all engaging in this process of new technologies to be more efficient, to reduce their carbon footprint, their greenhouse gas emissions, while creating jobs. And it's rather paradoxical, but today, those who are doing the most for the environment are not always the ecologist militants. It's often the industrialists that have the leverage and the power to truly change things, and who are changing things because they see that it is essential to do so. Véronique, when you hear Bertrand PICCARD talk about the waste of the world before, which is a factor of inequality, do you agree? Yes, absolutely. I am always amazed by all of these technological innovations. I find it tremendous. Human genius has no bounds. And when we put intelligence today in the service of a more sustainable development, I think it's wonderful. But be careful about the illusion of a third industrial revolution, of green growth, which would make us believe that we do have no bounds. We live in a limited world. First of all, resources are limited. All of the energy resources, the rare metals, that's why we call them rare, because they are limited in quantity, and we would need a whole debate on that. But above all, technology, industrial development, solves problems for the most agile, but not for the poorer shares of the population. I wanted to talk about energy renovation. That's a tremendous subject, energy renovation, because when you have a family that lives in a rundown housing, you entirely renovate their house. There's a lot of subsidies for that, so it's good for the family because they get back to normal life. I visited a house with a family, a little boy who said to his dad, well, now it's great because we no longer have a poor people's house, and I can ask my friends round. So socially it's good. It's good for employment. It creates jobs here which cannot be moved elsewhere. It's good for the planet. Except that the poorest shares of the population don't enter into the scope of the subsidies of €1 for energy renovation. And so we need to support very poor owners who live in houses that have become run down over the years because they have only 500, 600 euros of pension. And we have wonderful systems, but you have to fill in a file that is that thick. You have to pay some money in advance. Then there's the remainder to be paid for by yourself. And above all, there's a lack of trust. People say, well, this €1 system is not for me. It's a scam. And at the end, I will be poorer than ever. So we need a team of volunteers to help people to find their way through the system. So what is important is trust and mutual respect, and this is what will really transform society. The same thing is true for Too Good for Go. It's a wonderful platform. I have a lot of nephews, students, and friends who use it, but you have to be connected to use it. So it's very good today for students who are struggling because they're connected, but a poor family will never go onto the Too Good to Go platform. You said that it's a digital gap. They don't have mobile phones. They don't have access to internet. Yes, that's the first obstacle. And secondly, they have a lack of trust. They say it's a trap. So this question of trust and the way in which society is composed is core. And I'm going to read a passage from a bestseller that all of those who are interested in sustainable development are interested in. So it's our dear Pope Francis. I know that there's a very simple passage right at the beginning which says, the most extraordinary scientific progress, the most astonishing technical progresses, the most prodigious economic growth, if it is not accompanied by another context, which is progress, social and morals, will turn against mankind. That is not new in the ideology of the Church, because Paul VI was talking to the FAO in 1977. So the idea that technical economic progress is vital, that it's good, and that we have to use it as much as possible is important. But we must also question and redefine what human progress is. And human progress is recreating trust, creating fraternity. It's a word that we didn't hear a lot yesterday in the conferences. We must recreate fraternity among people. Otherwise, you can be as creative and imaginative as you like. It will benefit the largest number, but never the poorest. And the poorer people are increasingly numerous, not just in France, but throughout the entire world today. So this invitation, Pope Francis wrote the sequel, if you liked that. You'll like his Fratelli Tutti, which is a sequel. All brothers. We cannot save ourselves alone. So we must think about the life of the most vulnerable. So Bertrand Piccard, I imagine that when you have faith in innovation and change, as you do, when you hear Véronique who says, well, be careful, you're leaving part of mankind along the way if you don't include innovation and fraternity. I have the impression that we are indissociable from our actions. So that's why we brought you together today. We need both. We need both, because just one of our approaches, it would be insufficient. But we must understand something, and this is what I talked about with Pope Francis. Laudato Si is a magnificent text for those who are able to understand it, for those who have the possibility of applying it, because to say that we're all brothers and sisters, that we must respect the environment, that we must respect other human beings, that we must be generous, altruistic, is right. But human nature, unfortunately, does not allow everybody to operate in that way. And when you're a company director with 10,000 salaries to pay, when you're in an electoral campaign, or when you're president of a country or prime minister, there are imperatives and urgent situations, which mean that we have to create jobs, we have to create profit, we have to have companies that are working well. And if we say that technical progress must come after solidarity, then we won't be listened to by these people, who are those who take the main decisions. So we need this language, but it is not sufficient for those who cannot apply it. So when we're going to hear Bruno Le Maire later on, but there is a political battle. We can see that the message is being heard. You're talking about the big companies, the GAFA, and the tremendous profits. There is this battle underway. And there are results. In any case, we hope so. But things are moving forwards. Yes, but we have to provide the possibility of taking action. We have to bring the technical solutions that allow companies to be more, to show more solidarity. That is why I'm also a psychiatrist. So on the human level, I am 100% in agreement with you and with Daudat aussi. But what I also see is that human nature is not ready for this in all areas. So what I'm trying to do is to speak to those that the Laudato Si does not touch or affect, meaning to speak to those who have their hands in the grease every year. So you say no, you must make it desirable and you mustn't make people guilty. To make it desirable, you must provide tools, you must provide solutions, you must provide technologies so that this can take place. And this is where I take action with my foundation to bring solutions that are profitable and that do not require degrowth, which I believe would lead to social chaos. Because we engage in the process of degrowth, which are recommended by certain ecologists in terms of unemployment, and social net, it would be a disaster. There would be even worse suffering. So we don't need growth of consumption, but an economic growth of wealth for everybody. And I believe that we may contribute to that. So I have the timekeeper who's threatening me with just a word of conclusion. Yes, I'm not talking about degrowth, and the Pope neither, moreover. But we can talk about sobriety. And I believe that it is a desirable society. We often use this expression. It's a society in which we know that will have fewer goods and more relationships or links. So we saw that during the crisis. We saw that we were not traveling as much, and yet we were not misfortunate because we developed relationships with those around us. So I don't agree with you to say that we can't do things together. All men and women are made forged from the same metal. We have a sensitivity, but indeed the trigger will be the meeting. If you haven't physically met, the Pope explains this, people who are living in poverty, when you haven't listened to what their experience is, what they desire, then you will be surprised that very often they don't desire more material goods, but they just want to be heard. They want to be respected. They want their dignity to be respected. They want to have a dignified job. And that is part of the mission of the very big directors, not only to develop technological invitation, which is healthy and good, but also to say, well, in my company, how can I integrate people who've been deprived of employment for years, who no longer have any qualifications, and who just want to have a dignified job, to feel useful, to feel respected, to feel brothers and sisters of mankind. So between the most simple of workers to the biggest of directors. So for this end of the session, our slogan is fraternal revolution. It is a revolution, but it is fraternal. Thank you very much, both of you.